All right, says we're live.
Alrighty, welcome to All Sides of Kennebec. I'm Sean Karen.
This is Jeremy Leza.
And today we have a very prestigious guest. We have Shelley Rudnicki in studio. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I don't know how prestigious I am, but
He's always really good with introductions.
I know in one of the teaser clips I did use the word honorable.
oh, well, yes. You know, something I found out after I was elected, I was like, somebody goes to me, you do know that from now on, forever, you will be called the honorable. And I went, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh yeah, that's like a title that you will forever have now. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Wear it with a badge of pride. Yeah. But yeah, let's get into talking a little bit about your coming up on re-election here.
Yeah, I'm actually running for my third term.
Third term.
Yeah, I'm currently in my second term, and I'm running for a new district, actually.
I was going to say, because your district was affected too a little bit.
Yeah, I currently represent Fairfield, Mercer, and Smithfield, and my district will be Fairfield and Benton. So
Okay.
they moved, Mercer and Smithfield has been moved into the Oakland district, which is currently represented by Mike Perkins, and former Representative Bob Nutting is running for that position again. So those two towns will be moved with him. I'm taking Benton, and that's currently represented by Tim Terrio, but that has been changed. So there's been quite a few changes within all the districts, but I think it should be okay. It's actually a little closer to home. It's not a
Right.
20-minute drive out to Mercer.
That's true.
So it's a little bit closer that way. And I think that, a lot of people in Benton know me because of, being on the school board for 11 years. So
I was also going to say too. You definitely help. That's one thing that I've heard a lot of good things about is just how far your reach is. I mean, people are like, I can't get a hold of my house rep, but I reach out to Shelley and I can get the answer. And that's one thing that I've noticed that, you're not in my district. And every time I've ever reached out to you've always either had the answer right on hand or you've found out and then gotten back to me.
Well, I really try to do that because here's the way I've looked at it since I've been elected. I don't just represent the people in my district, because if I just represented the people in my district, I wouldn't vote on anything that didn't affect my district.
Right.
But when we become elected, I believe that you that you represent the people of Maine no matter what, because I don't live on the coast, but I certainly vote on lobster bills,
Right.
And fishing bills, and I vote on forestry bills, and, we vote on bills that, don't even affect us. I mean, we voted today, we had a tribal bill, and we represent the whole state of Maine, and I don't care you're not in my district, so I can't help you. That's not me. If somebody reaches out to me, if I can help, I try to steer them to their own representative. But I have heard a lot, especially during COVID, my representative doesn't get back to me.
Right.
And I hate to say that, but that's usually the other side of the aisle, because usually I'll reach out to representatives on my side of the aisle if it's their constituent and say, you know what, this person's been trying to reach you. Do you want to help them? Do you want me to do it? I try to, at least work on it that way.
And I think that's an awesome approach to take.
Yeah, absolutely.
For helping out the
Good
hardworking
governance.
Maine people for sure. So, have you done anything campaigning yet? Have you been out seeing anyone yet?
Well, I'm always out seeing people, so that's just kind of a given. What I'm doing right now, I started fundraising because I am a traditional candidate.
Okay.
So I've started fundraising. I actually started fundraising way back the end of August last year.
Okay.
So I started my fundraising. I want to raise about another $5,000 if I can do that for
Awesome.
my campaign. Because my opponent's running clean,
Mm-hmm.
if they get the maximum, they're going to have over 15,000 to go up against me. So I need to do that. And I don't have anything against clean election candidates. I ran clean my first term. Last term, I went traditional. That was interesting to try to do that very first. And then this time I've decided to run traditional again and raise the money for my campaign on that. And a lot of people don't realize that campaigns are really expensive.
Yes.
When you stop and think, well, and I'll give you an example. I just got the bill today I had to get new signs because I have a new district. So just getting 200 signs costs $900.
Wow.
Yep.
You know,
Wow.
when you get signs and the wires to hold them. You know.
That was gonna say, I know helping do a lot of campaigns over the years. Those wire things for the signs, those are
pricey.
quite a bit of the cost.
They are. They're
Especially-
about half of it.
Especially if you want to get the good ones.
Right. And I use my signs over. I'll go pick them up. I use
Right.
them over and over again.
Smart.
Right. I mean, I don't want to, even raising the money myself and not going clean, I don't want to spend the money needlessly.
Right.
I try to make sure that I'm, using it, effectively for
Right.
what
You,
I'm doing.
want to be
Being a
physically
good-
responsible with
Yeah.
it, of
Being
course.
fiscally, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good steward.
I try.
Absolutely.
I try. That's really
And,
what I have to do.
If who can donate to your campaign that you're running the way you're running?
Well, my campaign is a traditional campaign. So as long as you are a U.S. citizen, you
Okay.
can donate to me. You can donate up to $425 before the primary and an additional $425 after the primary. Or if you donate $850 all at once, then, I just have to separate it on the ethics report. But
Okay.
it's up to that. I have had donations from $5 all the way up to the $425. So, people have really been really great about helping me out. I have an Antidote account that is on my Facebook page, and I post different things up about that.
Do you know that off the top of your head?
My Antidote,
Or
I
where
think
would
it's,
the best place
on
be
my
to go?
on my Facebook page, but I'll pin it to the top again so
Okay,
that
good
it can
deal.
be seen. And I do that for a reason. Then I have people just can mail me checks, and so it's been great. I really want to say that people have been fantastic about helping me, donating to my campaigns. And I've had people all over the state from everywhere send me money. Had this one gentleman, I was doing a push on it, had this one gentleman from Portland that he watched my lives on Facebook and said, I really like what you're doing. I don't have a lot of money, but I'm going to send you $5. Well, that's so appreciative no matter
Right.
what.
Well, see, this is another thing too. I know working with campaigns over there, even sending a dollar to those campaigns, it does help. I'm not sure
Well,
I'm not
stop
sure
and
how
think about
yours
it.
is set up.
Well,
but-
stop and think about it. If somebody sends me $5, well, I mean, up until the price of stamps just went up again.
Right.
$5 will buy you almost 10 stamps, so 9 stamps, whatever.
Okay.
So that's, letters that go out or a mailer that you
Right.
have to do.
Absolutely.
Because that does get expensive. I know a lot of people don't like mailers and, because they don't like getting them in the mail. We all get them in the mail at election
Right.
time. But that's how you know who your candidates are. That's how
Uh,
you hear some
I
of the
know
things.
another big expense for candidates too is reserving space to do marketing or to get your campaign out on like social media, the radio. Buying those slots can get rather expensive.
It can, and one of the things that I do, because I don't usually do like radio, because I have 2 towns. Senate districts are a lot bigger, so when they run advertising and stuff like that, that's more. My district, it's a smaller district, so I may do something in the 2-cent Times because
Okay.
it hits so I may run something there. I may run.
I love how she keeps it local, though. I like
I
that.
try.
I
well,
really
you
do like
have to
that.
keep that local because that's who is going to be voting for you.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I try to do some of that. I do a lot. I do Facebook. Like I'll boost a Facebook post. Or
Yeah, I've noticed that's
some of
another thing that has hurt a lot of candidates over the years. Is even though I know companies like a shared studio, they help candidates get their promotions and stuff out, but even the candidates that don't pay to get that extra help. I mean, it doesn't take much to take a picture of yourself while you're out walking. You know what I
Right.
mean?
It's free.
Take advantage of that free advertisement. And I
Absolutely.
can't stress that enough with newer candidates. And we'll be getting into that a little bit
Yeah.
later because we're going to talk about the dinner pack.
Right.
So
I work I try to work with other candidates too that, you know, are looking for that. But that is one thing that I started doing is social media. I actually started really a big push with my social media when COVID started. That was kind of what got me doing it, because when I first started doing that, it was really hard to do the Facebook Lives. I still catch myself once in a while doing the and I really try really hard not to do that.
I used to write it on the wall. Don't say like, and a couple other words. I've gotten a little better over the years.
It's all those filler words.
Well, what it is, and somebody said to me once that when you do that, it's just you're stopping to think about it. So instead of saying the word, just stop.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's very difficult. I will tell you, I try really hard not to, but it is difficult to do. But when I started doing a lot of those, I actually started by supporting businesses in my community during COVID. So what I would do is I would go to different businesses within my district, and I would promote them. They're still open. Come check them out.
That's awesome.
They're having, you know, they're still doing deliveries, or I would do that type of thing. I even got a phone call from a couple of businesses in Benton and said, hey, would you come do a Facebook Live with me? And then out in Smithfield, see, I just did
It's
it again.
like a side gig right there.
Well, I said, yeah. I would go out and I would take pictures and I would kind of interview a little bit, you know, the people and just go, you know, how are you doing through this? And it was a tough thing for so many businesses. We lost businesses
that was
during COVID.
That was a big thing. I mean, Jeremy was even affected by this.
I owned a business that shut down. Actually, right on Main Street in Waterville.
Wow.
The Play Factory.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and a friend of mine owns the Benton Family Fun Park.
Yeah,
and
Tim.
he's
I was
closed it.
just gonna say, did they open up mini golf again?
No.
Tim
Tim's
closed
he's
it
actually,
all
Okay, so it
he's
is.
actually put the business up.
Okay, that's might have been what I was.
Is he trying to sell the building now?
He's gonna sell. Yeah, he
Okay.
wants to sell everything. But you know, he basically shut down because of everything. And I think that's where I just started doing more of this, doing those Facebook Lives and stuff with those businesses. And I'm very proud of the fact that I went out to Smithfield General Store, which is in my district, and they were actually on the verge of closing. And
Really?
I did a Facebook Live with them, which I'm very proud of. I've actually ended up doing like 3 different ones with them. And after I did it, it got shared and shared and shared. And so many people, that was kind of my highest level with
that's
them.
awesome.
That's awesome.
And so many people actually started calling them up, and they had people stop in and give them money just to help. They had people that made a point of ordering dinner just to keep them alive and open during that time. So I was very, that one I'm very proud of.
Well, I don't know if you do TikTok or anything, but
don't.
I
You
know
should get into it.
I know that there's a little bit of a fad going on right now, and it's to post your most viral video. So I mean, you could probably do that on Facebook, and it doesn't necessarily have to be TikTok.
Yeah.
But it's just to highlight something like you were doing to show the support, and it just shows how far that just a share goes, a like and share will go.
The reach
The
was
power
incredible.
of social media.
Absolutely, and it goes back to new candidates too.
Right.
It can be considered free advertisement.
Yeah. I mean, I did a lot of different things during COVID. I'm not one of those people that locked down. I didn't.
I was
going
going to say, I know you were going to the governor's office. Was it weekly or daily?
Daily.
Daily.
I think it was 34, 39 days. I can't even remember anymore. Every day.
I want to say you did a live for everyone.
Yeah, every one of them I did.
So
yes.
I guess
and that was a constituent that actually kind of encourage me to start doing some of that.
Did you ever get that meeting? That's one question I have.
To this day, no, I've not had a meeting with the governor. And I will tell you.
Wow.
So last year when I got to tell you this because it's actually pretty funny, and I tried to record it, but we're not supposed to record in the house, in the chamber anymore. I tried to. But the governor always comes in at the end of the session, and she does this pomp and circumstance and this speech, and she walks down the aisle, and she's shaking hands with everybody, and then she's leaving, and she's shaking hands, and I sit on the aisle. And she comes by and she shakes my hand, and I leaned over. I go, "Hey, Governor, when are we going to have that meeting?"
Oh, that's great.
Totally ignored me.
That is great.
And today, she come in today because they introduced the new justice on the court for Maine. She come in and they're introducing him, and she come in with him. And she kind of doesn't come over near me. You know?
Completely avoids the whole
I'm
area.
just like, well, okay. You know,
Fair enough.
I've yet to have a meeting with her, and I will tell you, most of my colleagues had either breakfast meetings with her, or they had like a Zoom breakfast with the governor.
You think they would have at least given you one of those?
4 years, I've yet to have a meeting with her.
Wow.
And other people have, but
that's a shame.
she
really
did
is.
call me once.
Oh.
Back in my first term, she wanted me to.
She knew you were in a meeting that morning.
Well, she wanted me to sign on to bonds.
Okay.
And I missed the call, so I called her back. And that's how I knew that when Savage gave out her phone number, it was the true number.
Oh.
Because I had her cell phone. So that was actually, it was funny, actually. But I knew that, so I called her back, and I just went, with all due respect, Governor, I don't agree with any of these bonds, so I'm not going to vote for them.
And that's how I'm not a very big bond person myself, because I do understand that has to be paid back at some point. And a lot of bond issues, I noticed here in the state of Maine, they tend to pass.
They always pass.
Mainers love bonds for some reason.
They love spending money that they don't
And-
have at the time.
Well, they don't think about it. Bonds
Right.
aren't money that they have to think about a lot.
Up front.
Right. It's not something that they think about. You know, it's a loan. They don't think about it.
It's like, I was going
out
to
of
say, a
sight,
lot
out
of
of
them,
mind.
I want to say on the lower end, are probably like 15 years before they have to start being paid back.
Well, no, a lot of times they're paying them back as we go. But they get to be, you know, there's actually quite
a significant amount that's got to be paid.
There is quite a bit that is still out there for bonds. And usually the reason bonds are something that they don't mind doing is because they're usually transportation bonds. We all want our
Right.
roads and bridges.
We all want the roads.
Well,
But let me tell you, we have money for roads and bridges. We just
That's-
don't have the people to do the work.
Yep.
that's it.
You know, we just don't. And so there's money out there, you know, there's money for roads and bridges that, you know, needs to be done. But for some reason, everybody's like, well, we have the money. But they keep wanting to put more money to it. Until we take care of what we have, you know, to keep throwing money, it doesn't make any sense to me.
No, you're definitely right. And one thing I've noticed with the bonds too, like I was saying, is they're always, by the time they're really paid back, it's quite a ways out.
Yeah.
So it really affects the further generations down the line. I know one big thing that I've kind of been looking into research it was the war effort and how steel and stuff was taken for World War II, and just how they like one area that I'm looking at right now is over in Mills Park in Fairfield. There used to be a footbridge.
Yes.
Well, it disappeared right around the war. So I'm trying to figure out if was it scrapped because of the war effort, or was it scrapped because it was just bad.
Have you reached out to the Historical Society?
Haven't gotten that far yet.
Because the Fairfield has a pretty good historical society, is my understanding, and that they can give you a lot of information. And to go along with that, just because we have it on our list to talk about, but I want to tell you, the Victor Grange in Fairfield, there's some really interesting things in that Grange, if you ever get a chance to check it out. So that's something that
That's
I'd love
definitely
Yeah.
something to keep in mind for sure, because I like to also post a little bit of the older history of around anywhere in Maine.
It's a big hit, actually.
Yeah, it seems to be doing rather well. I mean, I have an older lady that her grandson helps her send me stuff. It's kind of her highlight for the week. So
Nothing wrong with that.
But she enjoys it. But I have to be careful with some of the videos because some of them are owned. So I try to do the ones that are like 10 years plus that have been on the internet for 10 years or longer.
Less likely to get sued.
It's not that these ones aren't monetized or anything, so it's not like we wouldn't be making money off of them. So
we're definitely not making money.
But definitely like and share this podcast. Also, we'd like to thank A Shared Studio for sponsoring this podcast. Jeremy always forgets to do the plugs, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
I let Sean do it. It's like the highlight of his day.
Right. But
well, you know, if we want to get back a little bit on the campaign, just to let people know things that they can do to help.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
I know.
You know, besides donating,
the volunteering.
Volunteering's huge. Like myself, if you want to volunteer, there's always things that we can do. I'm going to have a postcard thing going out soon, and we try to do handwritten postcards on those. I'm also going to, I knock doors. I go out and I meet people.
That's the big one I find that candidates need help with,
Well,
is
and what they
knocking
need-
the doors.
Not even necessarily knocking the doors, but driving the candidate. Because
Yeah, it
when
does.
you're doing it, having somebody with you. I will tell you, when I first started, and especially going out into Mercer and Smithfield area,
Yep.
there's a lot of area out there that has no cell service. So I'd get on a road and I'm like, oh, there's no cell service here. So I would go back to where there's cell service. I'd call my husband, say, this is the road I'm going to be on. I'll reach out again in an hour. Well, because what I was told when I started too is you should never go out by yourself. You don't know what you're going to run into.
No,
when
that's
you're out there.
that's a great piece of advice to give.
But I always did. I'm so independent that I was like, I need to do this. I
Right.
didn't have a lot of volunteers my first
Right.
campaign. I've gotten more volunteers as I do, and people know who I am and they're
Right.
willing to help. So volunteers is huge, even for brand new candidates.
Yeah.
Even if you can only give them an hour or give them 2 hours. That
It all
really makes
helps.
a difference. All of that stuff will make a difference to a candidate. And we need to flip the House. We need to flip the Senate, and we need to take the governor's office. But we at least need to flip the House, because I hate being in the minority. I would love to try being in the majority. I think that if we can do that, and the one thing people don't understand, being in the majority has a lot of privileges. And
Yes, it does.
the biggest one is the constitutional officers.
Yep.
And that's what people don't understand. And you might go, well, what are you talking about? Well, that is the Secretary of State. The people in the majority have the most votes. So they get to choose,
Right.
basically, who the Secretary of State is, who the state treasurer is, who the Attorney General is, and who was Paul LePage's biggest pain in the butt? Janet Mills
Yep.
as
Right.
Attorney General, because they had the majority and they put Janet Mills in. And then they also get the state auditor. And what happened this year with the state auditor? Do you guys even remember or no? State auditor happened to be, now we all know Matt Dunlap was Secretary of State. He
Yep.
termed out.
Yep.
And when he termed out, his wife, I don't know if you guys know this one, his wife is the majority leader.
Yep.
The Democrat majority leader is his wife.
I didn't
They
know that.
put him in as auditor.
Wasn't there
Oh.
something about schooling too?
Well, so they put him in as auditor, and if you look at what the requirements for the auditor is, he did not meet those requirements. Now, the Republicans put forth a qualified candidate, but they put Matt Dunlap in. Now, an auditor has to be a CPA. You have to have so many years' experience as a CPA. He had no CPA. He had no issue. And
Wow.
in September, he finally resigned. He had to resign.
Yeah, if I
because-
remember how he maneuvered around it, as he said that he would get it by a certain
By
date.
September, yeah.
Yeah, so leaving people hanging thinking that you're going to get it, I kind of wonder if he was ever going to. Or if that was just
he
a...
did take the test. My understanding is he did take
So
some
he
of the
did.
tests. But if you look at the requirements, even getting that would not have met the requirements. But
Okay.
because they had the majority,
They could
they
ram
could
it
do
through.
what they wanted.
No,
They
you're right.
rammed him through. So those are important
Well, see,
parts.
And this is going to take us off the topic
Yeah,
a little
that's
bit,
fine.
but going to the national level, at the U.S., the D.C. level, that's why being able to filibuster is such an important thing for the minority. That's what protects the minority. So that's just my little spiel on that. I just had to throw that out there.
Well,
but-
I will tell you, and this drives me crazy when somebody says elections have consequences. Well, they're really right when they say
Oh, absolutely.
because of what this session has brought forth. This session, so I'm in my second term. So I've been through a normal term up until we had to shut down because of COVID. I was
Right.
in
And
a
that was the
normal term.
129th.
Right, shut down.
legislation.
Right, and we shut down in March for that one. Now, and that was our second year, so it was almost statutory adjournment. This year is April 20th, so statutory adjournment comes the middle of April. We shut down in March, so there was things that didn't get accomplished. The problem with I had a regular session, but this session was so unusual, being on Zoom.
Yeah.
And between being on Zoom and not being able to meet in person, we did such a disservice to the residents of the state of Maine, because it's the residents, who are
Well-
taxpayers and all, because we couldn't meet face to face.
Right.
And they couldn't come in and testify. But the worst part of that is
disconnection.
well, it was a huge disconnection. But I think one of the worst parts of that is, as colleagues, my first term I was on education.
Right.
We would take and we would have conversations outside of session. So, we might have lunch together. We might sit in one of the rooms and have lunch.
Bump
and we
in
would
the
have
hall.
Right. And we would have conversations. Hey, if we did this to this bill, do you think you guys could support it? If we worked this way, could you support it? Yeah, we could do that. We could, so there was some maneuvering that you could do.
And that's been taken out.
There is no maneuvering.
And we kind of touched bases on this earlier too. It does a disservice to the freshman body that comes in, because the precedent that's normal is no longer that precedent. So what is supposed to be normal,
right?
They don't know what normal
don't
is.
know.
Right.
And they don't even know, like, a lot of the maneuvering that happens, like, on the House floor. Because they haven't had the full experience. Because when we start, our first year is our longest year. Well, we didn't have a lot of that. We were at the Civic Center for part of it, and you didn't have. So knowing the protocols, knowing, there's a list of what motion is higher than another motion if you do things. And as freshmen, a lot of them have no idea what's happening. They're getting better because now we're getting towards the end of the year, and we've been able to be in session more. But there's still a lot of that disconnect of not knowing.
Translation being lost.
Well, and there's so much of that. And that's been really difficult this time. To be honest with you, I think there needs to be, and I hate adding more laws for the sake of adding more laws, but there needs to be a law that says you can't do that. There needs to be a law that says if you're going to be in session, you need to be in session.
I think that
I agree.
I think you did a live talking about saying something that a bill should be put in place that requires that you guys have to meet in person.
I think we really should.
I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth,
but we should. We should have to meet in person. Now, I'm not going to say I didn't take advantage of being home this year.
Right.
Because last year I went to the State House regardless.
Why wouldn't you?
Right. But this year I run a business.
Yep.
So, if I'm not at my business, somebody else has to be, or I have to close the doors. So, they put the rule in place. I did take advantage of it this year.
Yeah.
But I think that that's only right. If there's a law or a rule in place for us to, you can use it. Do I agree with it? No. Would I like to have been in session the whole time? Yes. But I'm not going to drive to Augusta, sit on a computer on Zoom if somebody else is in the room. And that's what happened last time. My whole Republican caucus last year went to the State House. We sat in the room, and we were on our computers on Zoom. Now, the Democrats didn't come in. Oh, right. I say that. Senator DeChambeau came in a lot. She's a Democrat out of Biddeford.
Weren't they fighting because some of the Republicans wouldn't wear masks? Was that part of the reason?
Yeah, that was part of it.
One of the reasons, I should say. There was a few of them.
Yeah, there was a few of them.
But the flavor of the week.
That was an exciting time.
Yes, it was.
You know what happened? I would have been with them walking into the State House, but I happened to be on vacation that time. I was gone. I actually took a trip, and like I said, I never locked down. My husband and I, at the beginning of COVID, we traveled cross country. I actually was fortunate enough to be at Mount Rushmore when President Trump gave his speech. I was actually inside Mount Rushmore.
That's awesome. I think I remember a post you had made.
I did all kinds of posts on that
if
stuff.
I remember right.
And that's, my husband and I like to travel. I mean, my kids are grown.
Right. Yep. You might as well take advantage of it.
I was going to say that this weekend you had a excursion too.
Yeah.
So that looked like it was a little fun.
36-hour round trip down in New Jersey. My niece is, my sister and brother-in-law moved to Pennsylvania 3 years ago, and I try to go down. And my niece she's as close as I'm going to get to a grandchild for a while. So
take advantage of what you can.
So I go down. A lot of times my husband doesn't go with me. I just hop in the car and I go. And so I left 6:30 Saturday morning, went to her dance competition in New Jersey, and went to Carlos's Bakery, which had to bring treats home for the husband. And
I was going to say, we usually hit a Krispy Kreme on the way back. That's one of our things coming back to Maine.
And I came back. I had to be back I had a Zoom meeting Sunday night, so I was back at 6:30 Sunday night.
Wow.
And so I just did a quick round trip on it. And I will tell you, gas prices from here to New Jersey varied from about $3.65 a gallon up to about $4.59 a gallon, depending on where you were.
New York could probably be more expensive.
New York was a little bit more expensive. Connecticut was it Connecticut that was the most expensive, and it depends on where
Yeah.
you were. Connecticut was one of the most expensive.
Wow.
Places.
And that's dependent on what their state tax is.
Yeah,
on
I
Well,
think
right,
that makes a
yes,
difference.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was a variety depending on where I was.
In
So.
Connecticut, they have a Democrat governor.
Yes, Connecticut does, I believe. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it depends on where you are.
Yep.
So you've got to. But I don't let things like that stop me. I just
No,
go-
it's one thing. I didn't really let the lockdown slow me down.
Yeah.
I still did my own thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still took my precautions. I still
Well,
made
of
sure I
course.
was safe. I mean, but
yeah.
I didn't let it rule my life, I
no,
guess.
I didn't let it rule my life. But
And-
I did help. I also did help during the course of that. Besides doing the videos that I did, friends and I, we got a list of seniors from the Grange. We got a list of some seniors that, were a little more in need.
Yep.
And I even had a couple of the postal delivery drivers, post office personnel. I don't know, whatever you call them now.
Post office driver.
Yeah, whatever.
Close enough.
But what I had them give me names, and we had so every Friday, friends and I would prepare meals.
That's
and
awesome.
For over 30 people on a regular basis, we delivered meals all around our town.
That's great.
In our area.
That's
so, I tried to help where I could, but I wasn't letting it stop me either.
Right.
That's
Right.
I'm
Yeah,
too
that was
independent.
like one big thing I helped out. We have some elderly neighbors in the neighborhood, making sure their trash was getting out. Because I like my next door neighbor, she was afraid to come out for the longest time, and for a little while there, the closest she was coming out was just peeking out her back door.
Yeah.
She
Wow.
and what she would do is she would have her groceries delivered through a lot of the apps that
Right.
are delivering now.
Instacart and stuff.
Yep, and
I
then
love Instacart. I
I
will
used
tell
to-
you.
Door-
I used to
DoorDash
drive-
and-
I used to drive for Instacart and DoorDash.
yeah, and then whatever Walmart's is.
I became a fan of Instacart when I broke my wrist a couple of years ago.
Mhm. It's a good, handy app.
And I use it even now. I hate going to the grocery store, so I use it even now, and I actually save money. You know how it costs you because you got to
Yeah.
pay the,
Right, the
thing?
fee and
but
stuff.
in the long run, I save money because I'm not buying by eye,
Yeah.
so
And,
I save money.
But anyways, getting back to
Anyway,
the
yeah.
story, she'd put her trash out, and I'd take care of it for her. So that
Well,
was,
I think we all, and I think everybody, I don't care if you are Democrat, Republican, Independent, or whatever, we tried to help each other during that period of time.
that's one thing I like about this area, and one big highlight that shows that would have been the ice storm of '98.
You're right. That was a huge. I was fortunate because I'm on a main road.
Yeah, I was gonna say
so
my-
I only was out for 2 days. That's all I was out.
We're on the hospital line, so we
Yeah.
were only out like 2 days.
Yeah, I was
too,
out 2
so.
days, but I have friends that were out 2
I
weeks
was
or
gonna
more.
say,
So
I want to say my uncle out in China, I wanna say his place was over a month.
We were
Yeah.
out for a while, but we had friends that had a generator, so I
Right.
was out there.
and I think that that is really what we do, and I think that as Mainers,
Yeah.
that's what we do is
Absolutely.
we help each other, and I try to do that and try to live my life by that. I guess mantra is that I want to help people when I can, regardless of what they're doing, and that actually has worked well for me on the state level, like we
Yeah.
were talking earlier. If somebody calls me for help, if I can help, I'll help.
Yeah.
Now, there's some things I can't do, and people have to remember, as a legislator, we're policymakers.
Yep.
We don't necessarily, but because we have that representative on, in front of our name, if I pick up the phone and I call a department head or something, they're at least going to take my call.
Right.
So I think that makes a little bit of a difference,
And-
and
and-
I
I
try
agree.
to do that.
And that's awesome. I mean, it's not a lot of, especially when you get stuck. There's not much you can do.
Right.
And
And you don't know where to turn.
Well, I think that's it, and that's one thing. We have a great staff too. So if there's somewhere I'm not sure where to turn or who to contact, if I contact like the House Republican office, the staff there will say, "Let me find out for you," or they'll help
point
us.
you in the direction of who to ask.
Or they'll do it. They're great about helping us to do that too. So I want to give the staff a lot of credit because they do help and
That's awesome.
when we need that. So I really think
Great.
that's great. So.
But yeah, so this week you guys are super busy down in Augusta. So
Yes.
you guys started Monday.
We went
Guessing?
5 days this week. We were actually in session. I keep losing my. We went in session last week as well. This week we're in all 5 days.
Okay.
That's the schedule. And then we're supposed to be in 3 days next week on Wednesday, statutory adjournment.
Okay.
So by law, we have to be done. The only way not to be done is if we actually go back into extra days and get called back, or we vote to stay in session to go back.
Okay.
Now, last week I was told, and I don't know how true this is, but somebody had said, well, we have a little over 600 divided reports to still talk about.
Oh man,
Wow.
that's a lot.
And for those of your listeners who don't know what a
Sounds like some early mornings.
For those that don't know what a divided report is, what actually happens is when we're in committee and we take a vote on a bill, and that bill will come out where it's either ought to pass, ought not to pass, or ought to pass by committee amendment A or whatever. If there are two sides, so if it's a unanimous report, it usually will go under the hammer and it moves through the process.
Rather quickly.
But if it is a divided report, what will happen is it'll go into the session, whether it goes to the House or the Senate, and that so people know how this works. If the bill was brought by a senator, it starts in the Senate. If it was brought by a House member or representative, it'll start in the House. So that's how you know
And
which
then it
way.
moves
And then it moves back and forth.
That's why I think one of your podcast or one of your show lives you did, you said it'll go back and forth a couple times.
Yeah, it does because it has to go. So a divided report, what happens is if you go in and you discuss it among your own caucus and you go, okay, it's really a nothing bill, we can let it go under the hammer, which just basically means there's not going to be a roll call on it.
Okay.
But if it is a divided report and it's controversial, then you want to, and because the Democrats have the majority, they get to decide which part of the divided report moves forward. So if, say, we had and this has happened recently, we had divided reports come out of criminal justice.
Okay.
But we actually had like a 7-5 where Republicans had pulled a couple of Democrats on our side. Mm-hmm. But because the House has the majority of the people on our committee, and their report was the minority report, they can move the minority report. So they get to decide which report we're going to vote on.
Oh.
Yeah, believe me, it's kind of, it can get confusing. And then when you're a new legislator, it can. So they get to decide. And if they decide, even though they were on the minority, they can decide to move their report. And then those are the ones that we have to vote on. And it has to fail before. Right now, they're voting in lockstep on almost everything. They really are. It's like, there was a bill today that they didn't, which I thought was unusual because it really has been unusual. It's kind of nice to push the green button and actually win a vote once in a while, or the red button and win a vote once. It doesn't happen very often right now, but we had a
small
couple
victories.
Small victories. We got to take them while we can get them. Yep. One of the bills that we had today that's really important for people to know about and I want to say, and I posted it up on my Facebook page, the Democrats voted to use taxpayer money to fund abortions.
It's definitely
$1.7 million to do that. And it's basically going to Planned Parenthood.
So do you know what the LD number is, just for anyone that wants
I just posted it on my Facebook, and I can look it up. It'll take just a second. I actually even posted on that,
just because for some people that don't know, LD numbers are how you reference the legislation.
Yes. And I actually posted the roll call as well. So that one is LD 811.
And another way you can check this out too is if you go to, I believe it's Maine. Is it just the Maine.gov site? It comes up with where you can plug stuff in.
Yeah, you can actually just Google an LD number, or you can Google things for Maine legislature.
Yeah, like LD.
I want to.
I
want to say if you go right to the Maine.gov, there's a few spots that have. Yeah, I can see it, but
legislature.maine.gov will get you to those particular. Where you can plug in either an LD number, or you can even plug in there's places to plug in keywords.
Like an HR number or something.
Yeah, usually not. I don't usually do HR numbers, but usually if you're looking for, you can plug in just a keyword, and that will pull up some stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Good to know.
So it'll give you an idea of what you're looking at. So we've had some interesting bills come up. There's a couple that have been put on to. what am I trying to say? The
Docket.
on the table. Well, what they're putting on the table. And basically, they'll table a bill that they're not sure how the vote will go, or if they're waiting for
and then bring it back when they know they have it.
Well, and so here's the
Or
problem.
could potentially
there are
have
some bills that require a 2/3 majority.
Yep.
So, and it's usually, there's two ways to be a 2/3. 2/3 of those present and voting, or 2/3 of the whole chamber.
Okay.
So if it's 2/3 of the whole chamber, they need 101 votes for it to pass.
Yep.
If it's 2/3 of those present and voting, if we're there until 9 o'clock at night and people are tired and people have started leaving and peeling off and decided they've had enough today, if they can peel enough numbers off, the 2/3 present is a lot smaller number
it
to
gets
deal
dropped.
with. So we have to be careful on what's going on with those type of things as
I see
well.
what you're saying, because they'll pull them out
Right.
when they have it.
And the 2/3 of the chamber, one of the things about that is, like, if the governor does veto something and we want to uphold a veto,
Yep.
that's a 2/3 of everyone. So they need they need 101 to overrule a governor's veto.
Okay.
And it works both ways, no matter what the governor is, who the governor is. So.
Okay.
Is there some certain, because I've seen like where you look at some of the roll call votes and it says like 65 needed for to pass.
Right.
So is that if there's like, if it's majority at that point?
Yeah, most of the votes are majority votes, and but unless it's an emergency, if it's considered an emergency. Now, an emergency bill would be if they wanted it to take place immediately after the governor signs it,
As opposed to 90 days.
as opposed to at 90 days at the end of session.
Right, okay.
Okay, so it's 90. So our statutory adjournment is on the 20th. So most of the bills will take place 90 days after adjournment.
Oh, yep.
So, and like I said, there's a lot of this nuances that a lot of the new folks just haven't had the opportunity to experience. So they're just starting to get that now, and here we are at the end of session.
Right.
And we actually had some people that had decided not to run again because of their experience this year.
So that would actually be a good idea for a future podcast, is to invite someone over just to talk about the minutia of all the legislative stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
Like how a proposed bill becomes a law.
Right, from going to the revisor's office to going to, and it's different depending on where you are in the legislative session. So if you are at the beginning, so once we get elected in next January, or it'll actually start next November and December, you can put a bill in and it's automatically going to go to committee.
Okay.
But the second year,
Right, which is the emergency year.
it's supposed to be the emergency year.
Or the tabled year from the...
Right, you can table and to bring forward, but if it's supposed to be emergency, but what you consider an emergency and what
Well,
I
because
consider...
they vote, and obviously
Right.
the majority
And
is the one that...
Well, and what
chooses.
they vote to choose, that goes through legislative council. And legislative council is made up of...
Yep.
It's very specific. So that's why you want the majority in at least one of the houses, because it's the Senate president, the Senate majority leader, the Senate minority leader, and then you have the House majority leader and the House and the assistant. So you've got the majority, the assistant, and the speaker in the House, and then you've got the minority. So the minority right now, because we're in the minority, we only have 2 members from the House and 2 members
Right,
from
it breaks
the
up
Senate.
six
So
to
it's
4
6 to
right
4.
now.
Right.
Okay.
Because I was
So-
helping Laurel with trying to get that tax stuff.
Right. And so because of that, they got to decide every bill. And out of the 110 bills that came in from the beginning for this year, only 10 were Republican bills.
And I'll tell. So ironically enough, and it's important to vote because I emailed every one of those members multiple times. The only person that's ever got back to me was my own senator, Matt Pouliot.
Yep. That's what happens, and that's why it's really important for people to get out to vote, to have a say. People may say, my vote doesn't count. Yes,
It
their
does.
vote
It
does
does.
count. It makes a difference, and we all have to do that. We have to do. So this is going to be a busy, busy week.
So, coming up on the rest of this week, what do you know that's on the forecast for this week?
Budget right now.
Is there anything big coming down that you know of that?
Well, the budget is, so to kind of, I like to try to give people a little bit of an education when we talk about some of this stuff. And so right now, the state of Maine has a balanced budget amendment. We have to. Our Constitution says we have to have a balanced budget.
Right.
So they've been talking about the revenue forecast that says we have this much extra money that we have to spend. So they have to spend it, they have to give it back, whatever. They have to spend
it by a certain date.
Well, yeah, it's just because of how the budget and the fiscal year works. So you have to say it doesn't necessarily have to be spent, but you have to have it
accounted for.
So under this budget right now, the governor talked in her State of the State address that we had approximately $800 million in her State of the State. Shortly thereafter, the State of the State, we had about $1.2 billion in revenue forecast. So that's extra money that we had to do something with. Now, personally, I'm about, let's give it back to the people that paid it in. You know, that's where I'm at. Let's just give it back. Why do we need to spend it? Why do we need to keep spending all this money? And now I found out just the other day, it's now up to almost or right around $1.3 billion in a forecast.
That's crazy.
And that's why they have, and I say they because I'm talking about Democrats, they have no problem spending money.
Right.
I want to see it go back to the people that spend it, or spend it in a way that it's one-time money. Mm-hmm. So remember that what happens in the budget, we already passed a 2-year budget.
Right.
Right. Everything's already taken care of.
Right. So they don't need anything else. So everything's already been. But now this is when, if it's one-time money. Like I voted in criminal justice to actually, do you know that our state police do not have body cams?
Right.
Yep.
So I voted that, okay, it's one-time money. Okay.
Use it to get
let's use it for that. I think that's
awesome.
a pretty good idea.
I think that would be a
As
good
a
idea.
libertarian, I 100% agree.
So
That's
I
some
think
great
that's a
transparency.
good idea. Let's do it like that. And when they brought our budget forward in other things, drove me crazy, because the state police right now has about 24 unfilled positions, but they wanted an additional 18 positions. I have a problem with that. If you have unfilled positions, why do you need more positions?
Right.
Because what happens is that money that's in the unfilled positions can be moved with a change package. Yeah. And I understand using it for overtime, because you have positions that aren't filled. Let's use it for overtime and do that type of thing.
Things change.
I get that. But to ask for an additional 18 positions, I had a problem with that.
Yeah.
So I voted no against those things. Well, let me tell you right now, and I got my information from somebody on the Appropriations Committee, so they have the right figures. But apparently, currently in the state of Maine, we have 1,800 unfilled, budgeted, but unfilled positions in the state of Maine. 1,800.
Wow.
And the Democrats have asked for an additional 240 positions in this budget.
Wow.
That's what they're asking for. Isn't that crazy?
And
it's our tax dollars.
And then when they do hire these positions, they take that.
If they do.
But they're not going to hire that many, so they're just going to reallocate that money somewhere else.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They'll take the money.
Change package to change it to use for something else.
Right.
And that's what I have a problem with. I've always said
that doesn't seem very physically responsible.
You mean fiscally?
Physically, thank you. Sorry.
Fiscally.
Whatever.
Not physically.
Financially responsible.
Yes, thank you.
So to me, but that's how it's done. And I get some of that. You have to have the ability to move money. You have to be able to do that. But some of that stuff I have a problem with. Now, the Republicans have put out what our priorities are.
Well, I think that's what it is a lot of it isn't priority, but they're trying to say it is.
Right. And see, we've put out a list of priorities. We think I believe our biggest priority is giving money back to the taxpayers.
Yep.
You know, and I know the governor has actually jumped on board for that aspect of it.
It's election season.
Well,
so.
yeah, you know,
of course.
It's election season.
I'm going to buy your votes.
Right. You know, and folks don't expect your check much before October, because she wants to put a nice letter in there, see what I did.
Right.
See what I did,
well,
vote for me.
Who was it? I want to say it may have been you that I heard it from, but talking about when checks are printed, the amount of money it takes to print those checks.
Yeah. So when they gave out the checks of $285 last fall. They came in checks. Now, most of us now file electronically.
Right.
Right.
It's very easy to send that electronically. You get your income tax return back. You could do that.
Usually it's faster too.
Exactly. But the checks going out, they can put a nice letter in and
Yep.
it's, look what I did. And that
Pat on
actually
the back.
costs over $500,000 to mail those checks
That is just.
instead of doing
I
electronically.
never really looked at that aspect of it.
I didn't either, believe me,
And
until it was brought to my attention.
Now that I look at it, I was thinking of this earlier, and I'm going, my God, looking at what the U.S. government spends to send just Social Security
It's
checks out, it's like,
Well, most of those even now are
Yeah, well,
going
yes.
electronically.
So,
Yeah,
I
so-
remember hearing a couple weeks ago that there was Republicans in the House that were trying to make it so that they expedited the money.
Yes, that's what we actually tried to put a bill in. So the House Republican AFA committee, Appropriation and Financial Affairs Committee, which is the ones that handle the budget,
okay.
they actually put a bill in that said, let's expedite this money. They wouldn't even hear it. They
think I
wouldn't-
remember
AFA
hearing something
wouldn't
about
even
that.
Hear it. They just kind of like, nope, and they tabled it and off it went. So they didn't want to talk about that because, be honest with you, from my understanding right now is a lot of the Democrats don't want to give back the money. The governor wants to give back the money.
Right.
That's where it's coming. The governor
Well,
wants to give
she
back some of it.
she
because
knows
she's-
what
right.
what's at
They're-
stake
they,
this
they're
this time
still
around.
looking to pay, to do all
Play with
their
it.
play with
Play,
it,
right.
whatever
Yeah.
they want to do for their pet projects or whatever's coming. So that's going on. Now, another priority we have, part of that check amount, right now, there is a cap. Now, the cap is if you make more than $75,000 a year or a couple $150,000 a year, you're not going to get that money back. Well, guess who's been paying in this money? That's the excess money. My roughly is about 70+% of the money that's in the forecast that's extra money is from income tax payers.
Okay.
So that the people that make that, higher, they're the ones that have been paying it in.
Right.
But they're going to be they want it, the Democrats have got it capped at $150,000. So if you are a nurse that works overtime and your husband is a police officer,
I was going to
whatever,
say
that
a
works overtime,
lot of the travel nurses are
right,
are-
they're going to make much money. So they're not getting it back, but they're the ones paying it in.
It's really not that hard to make that.
Especially in southern
Cap.
Maine. Now stop and think about southern Maine. That's where the cap is going to reach a lot of people. And that's going to, my own son is a lineman for CMP. By the time you work overtime, by the time you do these things, you'll reach that cap, especially
Yeah.
on a single person, 75,000. In that type of position, he's going to reach that cap. He's not going to quite, and he's paid in.
right.
A buttload, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Yeah, I've done his taxes. Yes. So that's the type of thing that
Sounds
they wanna,
high, but it doesn't accumulate too much.
when you looking
No.
at a couple that or if you are a small business
That's
owner,
what I was just going to bring up.
that's going to make a difference too. So they're not getting that back.
Well,
and that's
I
why. And I think we ought to just release the cap, not have a
Yeah,
cap,
don't have a
and
cap.
let people.
I
That's,
think
that's
on
not
on,
what they're
on
doing.
the small business aspect is a lot of people's disconnect. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, small businesses, they do great," but what they don't look at is the overhead
Oh, exactly.
that comes with the business.
The only people that think small businesses do well are the ones that have never owned small businesses.
Right.
And you are very correct on that because a lot of people think, oh, well, you only pay me $15 an hour. Well, here's the problem that a lot of people that don't own businesses don't realize. That $15 an hour is not just $15 an
Right.
hour
You don't
because
pay
you got to pay
just
the
the
taxes.
$15.
You got to pay the taxes, the workers' comp, all this other stuff that goes along with it. And
You have
if
to
you
match
never-
their taxes.
You
that
have
they
to
pay.
match their federal tax withdrawals, plus you have to pay all the insurances and everything.
Curious to know what that number is.
So if you're paying
From-
someone about $15 an hour, realistically, you're going to pay probably about $19 an hour.
So,
I would
so
actually think it's even higher than that. I
might
would say
be.
it's probably between $20 and $22 an hour.
Maybe by now. It's been
Yeah.
a little bit since
Yeah.
I've owned a business that had
And
paid
because
payroll.
and
but-
especially if you start looking at they have to pay workers' comp.
Well, now they have
to
more.
pay-
I think they have more requirements now that 130th legislature voted some stuff in, right? If it's like so much, if you have like so many
Yeah, well,
employees,
you have to pay-
PTO and things
yeah,
like that.
there's a lot of that different things that they
Yeah.
have voted in, and I will tell you, I usually vote no on those things
Yeah, I'd
because
vote no
I
on
just
every
I
one of
think
them.
anything
the growing of
small
the
business-
bureaucrat.
Well, and that's the problem we have right now is that growing of the bureaucrats.
Yeah.
It's
Adding more money, adding more. But see, what a lot of people don't realize when they add all these extra people, or they add, that it doesn't stop here with just the money that we have in the forecast right now. What happens is that becomes the baseline of the budget.
Yep.
So when Paul
Next
LePage
year.
left office, he left with a $7.5 billion biennium budget. Now the biennium budget is like 8.3 to 8.6. So it's gone up almost $1 billion since Janet Mills came into
I'm
office.
sure a lot of that's labor too.
A lot of it is labor.
And
a
you
lot
can't
of it
really
is,
make that go away
once,
because it's contractual.
well, some of it's contractual, but hey, if you start reducing positions, and that's what Paul did when he first came into office too, was cut back on some of those positions.
Yep.
And they just keep, hey, I want my buddy to have a job. That's the way I look at it. I'm a little kind of cynical when it comes to some of that, but that's what happens a lot. And we really need folks to understand that. And I hate to say this because it drives me crazy when people say it, but elections have consequences.
Absolutely.
And that's where you have to remember, do you want somebody that's fiscally, conservative so that you're not spending your tax dollars? Or do you want somebody that doesn't care? They're just going to keep spending money because it's there to spend, and let's spend it.
Which brings me to another question. What are your thoughts on abolishing the income tax, the Maine income tax?
The Maine income tax. So it's my understanding when the Maine income tax came in many, many years ago, it was supposed to be a temporary thing.
As all government
As
programs
all-
are.
Well, and that's why we keep adding government programs. They're not temporary.
Right.
So I think that there is a plan to move forward to do that. When you look at what our neighbor to the south does in New Hampshire,
One of my favorite states. Go Free State Project.
there is a way to do it. It has to be done incrementally. Okay,
Of course.
We're not going to be able to elect a Republican governor, a Republican Senate, and a House, and just say, okay, no more income tax.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right.
It's going to have to be done incrementally, but I'm totally on board to do that. I think it would be beneficial to the state
I think
because
so.
under the most recent polls, I think it's the polls that said Maine is
One of
number
the
3
highest
Yeah.
in the country right now in taxes. Number 3. Now, that is because the state of Maine has been, state of Maine has been controlled by Democrats for more than 50 years. I think only
It may even be pushing closer to 60 now.
Well, you're right, because it's only been in the last, we had 2 years that that Republicans controlled the House, the Senate, and had the governor's office. But other than that,
And that's when he got first elected, right?
that's when he first got
2010.
elected. Yeah. So, and this is probably not a good thing to say, but Republicans have to know how to lead, and we have to get in there. Personally, there's a lot of things I want to repeal. There's a lot of, and I don't know how your listeners feel about this, but I am so sick of having to pay for bags and not have plastic bags when
Me
I
too.
need them. Thank you very much.
Repeal that law.
Hey, I
That's
know,
like the
I know.
worst.
Here in Waterville, I helped prolong that. So you guys are welcome for that. I tried to make it so that it didn't come, but
Yeah. I mean, there's just things like that. I mean, just like a $500 fine if you release balloons.
I saw
So-
that. That's
Yeah, that
crazy.
was last year.
Yeah.
So I made a trip to New Hampshire. This is a couple months ago, and when I was there at Walmart, since their plastic bags are normal, I made sure that they bagged each item separately. So when I came back to Maine, I had about 7 or 8 plastic
Oh, yeah.
bags.
When I knew
that's
it was
awesome.
coming, I kept saving them even more and more.
And
when
that
I
was
knew
just
it
like a
coming.
couple
I was
months
gonna
ago.
say
But
when
we
I
u-
finally
we
put
use
it
them.
away, I had like 5 like regular trash can, like the household trash can, 5 of them. I think I got like 2 bags left now.
Yeah, we use them. I mean, I use them to line the bathroom.
Yeah,
trash,
that's one of my
trash
big
and
ones.
Things like that. We reuse them. It's not
Yeah.
like we're just
They're not just
you
throwing
know,
them out, using them
yeah,
once
we're-
and throwing them out.
Right,
we're
right.
reusing it. And I will tell you, the paper bags that they're selling us at 5 cents a piece don't even
Well,
they rip, and they're not they're not as sturdy as they used to
I
be.
talked to somebody that knows a little bit about how the paper bags are made, and they were talking about a lot of the chemicals that go into the way that they press the bags. Those chemicals aren't good for the environment. so
This isn't about
where,
actual
where is-
environmentalism.
where is this trade-off?
I have no idea anymore. Some of this stuff is
The,
just
the
drives me
supermarket
crazy.
associations, like the lobbyists. 'cause now they
Somebody
can
wanted to
charge
make
for
money
bags.
for it. I think is ultimately what pushed it.
The stores, lobbyists are huge. Like you can't go anywhere without like running into a lobbyist.
I know it.
Well, if you're involved in politics at all, you can't.
Right.
You know,
No.
Yeah.
Most people don't know who a lobbyist is. Normal people that don't deal in politics.
Yeah.
I think and I'll be honest with you, I think people in Augusta think they're more important than they really are.
Yeah, me too.
Honestly, because they think everybody knows what they're doing.
Right.
I mean, it's just like when you said when you introduced me. I don't look at it that way, but I do have colleagues that think that they are, that
The shit,
everybody
yeah.
knows
Well, see,
who they are, and everybody.
that's the difference between a good person and somebody who thinks they're a good person.
I just
So.
think it's crazy on some of that stuff. A lot of people think that everybody knows what goes on in Augusta. The problem
There's a
we've
lot of
had-
angles.
There's a lot of angles, but people down in Augusta, most people don't know. I mean, you guys pay attention to politics.
Right.
And
So
even
you
then,
know,
I mean,
but
I'm
even then
still.
you don't know a lot of, and that's just it. Until I got there, I thought I knew a lot. I've always considered myself
Well-
a political junkie, and
Yeah.
What is that saying? If you watch the news, you're. Oh wait, how does it go? If you don't watch the news, you're
probably
not
more-
in. If you don't watch the news, you're not informed. If you do watch the news, you're misinformed. Is what it is.
I would agree
I think
with
that's
that.
what the saying is. But yeah, that definitely.
I would
definitely
agree with that in
falls.
a lot of ways.
So it's kind of cool because Bruce White, he's a friend of mine. When he got elected, he invited me to come in and be a guest. Well, he brought me in to one of their caucuses, and that I don't remember really what they had done. That was really interesting to see, though. Like basically, like all the Democrats arguing over like what they're going to support and what they're not going
Right.
to support and why they're going to support it. So I think if anyone should want to find out more, if you ever get invited to go to like the state house, go there and possibly try to sit in a caucus, and it would be really cool.
Caucuses are hard to sit in on, especially when you're at this time of year. And a lot
Right.
of times in caucus, unless like leadership or whatever knows that you are a staunch, whatever, so that what being said doesn't get out. Because
Right.
a lot of times caucus is when we strategize or we talk about certain bills and how things are done within caucus. And each caucus is made up of, like, the House has the House Republican caucus, and then there's the Senate Republican caucus. So that's where we meet and kind of confer, because a lot of people don't understand when there are 1,000 bills.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot read
No.
and comprehend
Right.
1,000 bills.
That's what the committee reports are supposed to be
Right.
for.
And then what happens is in caucus, what will happen is the bill will come up and they will ask the lead or the members of the committee, so why did you vote this way? And sometimes in our own caucus we had bills today. The divided report had Republicans on both sides of the report. And so we would ask, why did you vote this way? What's this bill? And they'll give their opinions. The one thing I would tell any new candidate or anybody running, first of all, you are never going to read every bill that comes in front of you. You will
No.
take care of in your committee. So you have
Probably
to
drive
find,
yourself nuts.
You can't
trying
even
to
probably
do that.
physically do it.
No. I mean, you probably could, but it's really.
I would
I'm not
imagine you
there.
probably have to use a reading app
Yeah.
and speed it up.
So one of the things that we do is we find somebody we trust within our caucus that's on those committees, know somebody, and you ask them about the bills. Just like when we're meeting within caucus and talking about the bills, why we vote one way or another. Sometimes that's why you'll see. Sometimes it feels like, well, they're voting exactly the same way every time. It's just depending on how they approach it. I've been known to vote against my caucus if I don't agree with a bill that's come through. I actually did once this week. It happened to be a PFAS bill, so my town has a big issue.
Stay
with
tuned. We're
PFAS.
going to be talking about that next. So
So there has been there are times when I do vote against the caucus. So we're not always in lockstep, even though people think we are. And if you watch, like we had some bills today where half of our caucus went one way and the other half went the other way. We actually we vote our conscience. I've always said that's the thing.
That's one thing I like about being a Republican is we don't necessarily always agree.
No.
And we're not going to hate each other at the end of the day if we don't.
Yeah,
So.
we're not going to agree 100% of the time. I'm sorry, I don't agree with my husband 100% of the time. So, so that just doesn't happen.
Right.
So when I watch the other side of the aisle and it feels like they agree 100% of the time, it's
pretty
somebody's-
close.
Yeah, and
It's definitely a lot.
I think it's a little more
Which-
than Republicans.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not a Republican, but I'd probably have to agree based on what I've seen.
Yeah.
Democrats tend to stick more together lockstep than than
Right.
Republicans.
Right. Because, we look at it as we vote our conscience and what's best for our districts. I mean, we don't all come from the same area. We don't all come from the same districts. And our districts are made up so many different things. Some things important in my district may not be important down east.
Right.
There are different things. And we vote what's best for, we look at it as, even though I represent the state of Maine, I do represent my district. So I try to vote what's best for my district. If there's something specific that way.
If another district doesn't do well, it could affect your district.
Well, and you're right, depending on what's happening.
I mean,
Like, take Billy Bob, for instance.
Yep.
He's from Winter Harbor.
Right.
So he's going to have more vested interest in lobstering than you would.
Right. And he does. And most of the time, Billy Bob and I will vote along the same lines.
Yep.
We're both
I'd like to
pretty
get Billy Bob
conservative.
on the show. We should try
That might
to-
have to be a virtual thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Winter Harbor is like
It's
an
a little
hour
ways
and a
out.
half away.
Right. Yeah, it's a little more
We'll have to,
complicated.
or if he ever comes up this way, we'll see if we can grab him. or something.
Maybe like a
do a pre-show and then throw it up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll figure something out.
He's fun. He actually sits behind me in the house, and so we
I
have a
I talk to
conversation a
him.
lot.
I talk to him on Facebook
Yeah.
every now and again.
We have
so.
conversations a lot of,
He's
because
a good-
he sits
good
behind
guy.
me. He actually got me in trouble, so I got yelled at by the speaker a
Talking
couple
too
weeks
much?
ago. No, I wasn't even paying any attention. So there are certain protocols within the house, okay? One of the protocols is, apparently, I didn't really know about it because I didn't really think about it, is you can't turn your back on the speaker.
Oops.
And
Really? That's silly.
and we were in session, and Billy Bob was right behind me, and I
turned
turned
to talk
my
to him?
whole chair. Well, usually if you go sideways, like so you can pay attention to what's going on. Like
Okay,
I
I
do this
gotcha.
type of thing. But apparently, I kind of turned my whole chair around, and I'm just sitting there
Oh.
talking with him and Dwayne that was sitting behind me, and I'm chatting, and the speaker yelled at me.
And we're talking about Billy Bob Buckingham for anyone that's kind
Yeah,
of curious.
representative out of Winter Harbor. So so we have some interesting times, and this session, like I said, it's been hard to get to know your.
Absolutely.
So when we do try to do things, whether it's going to lunch together
Right.
to talk or whatever, we try to do some of that stuff when we have breaks, because most people don't understand what legislative time is.
Right.
I hate the term because it drives me crazy. Like, if we're supposed to start at 10 a.m., legislative time might be
11:30.
drives me absolutely crazy.
It's a New York minute.
Why would you even start? 10 a.m. sounds like it's pretty late to start.
You would think.
Well, we
I
I know
usually-
there's people like coming from like a rustic
Right.
county
Well,
and
a lot
stuff,
of
but-
times if they're coming that far away, they'll come down the night
Trey,
before. If they're coming in on Monday, like for Monday, they'll come Sunday night or whatever and stay over.
Stay at the Hilton over there. Is that what the
Well,
Hampton?
No, they don't say.
no.
A lot of them, because there's only so much reimbursement. So
Oh, yeah, that's
it's-
right.
They
Yeah,
only
yeah,
get a
yeah.
certain reimbursement. But
I
you know,
forget that Maine is a lot of our House reps, senators, even the governor is the lowest paid within the country.
Yeah, I found
So-
that out. I was at a couple of conferences a couple years ago and found out like what some places get paid.
Yeah.
And
It's like
you can't make a living
I'm in the
off
wrong
what we
state.
get paid. You can't.
No, you
not in
better
this
hope
state.
you
You
have-
can't. That's for
and
sure.
and as a representative, you do it. I know.
I think
like
it's for the
myself.
love of the people, honestly. If you're
and
going
I
to be a
think-
good candidate,
Well,
a
I
good
think
politician.
unless you're being paid by, a social, or a nonprofit on a regular basis. If you're being
Right.
paid by a nonprofit because you work for them, and you become a legislator, you're still being paid by the nonprofit. I think that happens some. I'm not 100% sure because I don't know what everybody does for a living.
Right.
It's very hard for business people to do that because you're away from your business so much. Believe me, I have actually lost money since I've been in the house. So
I was going to say, I could imagine pulling
Yeah.
you away from the
yeah,
office.
it's definitely but I do it because this is
It's
my
definitely
state.
gotta
I've
be-
lived here
yeah.
all my life.
It's
I've never
got to
lived
be an
anywhere else.
enjoyment factor, I would imagine.
It's not so much. I just
Oh, I
enjoy
would think
life.
it would be. I think it'd be for
It's
the
frustrating.
pride of the
I don't
state.
even. Well, I guess maybe you could say it's because I want to see. I want to see my state succeed.
Right.
I want to see my. I want to. And I've been. Like I said, I grew up here. I'm fifth generation. I think I'm fifth. I can't remember.
I was going to
anymore.
say I'm right around
like
there too.
Fifth
So
generation Mainer, and so I've always lived here all my life, and
it's home.
it's home. It is. It's home, and I want to protect home.
Yeah.
And my way of protecting home is certainly different than some other people's way of protecting it in the legislature.
Well, see, that's one thing that I've because I was born in California and then moved to Maine when I was 10, 9 or 10, somewhere in there. I've seen what the bigger cities and how things work, and I've noticed, like, when I try to explain it here in a smaller setting,
Yeah.
that's where I get a lot of pushback, because there's a lot of social things that go on in the bigger cities. So I see what doesn't work on that aspect, and
But
then
they're
I try.
trying to bring it here.
Yes, and I try to show them that it doesn't work, and then I get ostracized because I'm making fun of someone instead of them saying, well, let's talk about the issue. They think I'm making fun of someone.
And the thing is, if you move here because Maine's the way life should be, whatever tagline you want to use or whatever, if you move here because you want to be part of the state, stop trying to change us.
It. Right. Exactly.
Stop it.
Yeah.
It's like, I love the state. I've been here all my life, and
Maine,
I want my kids to be able to come back. I mean, my daughter lives out of state now.
There's no place like Maine. I mean, I don't want to see it like Massachusetts.
Well, no.
Or even
any of those.
I don't want to see it like Connecticut. I mean, even Florida for Matt. You know what I mean? It's Maine. Maine is Maine.
Right. And I think, if you move
has
here
that allure.
because you like what Maine offers, then stop trying to change us. And that's actually what's happening with all these social programs and all this stuff that's coming in. And that's what I have a problem with. So I do what I can to.
And I've noticed there is a lot of pushback when people start trying to show the outside source, because then they try to say you're attacking people. It's like, that has nothing to do with it.
I've been called everything under the book. So it's a good thing I got broad shoulders. That's all I can say.
Let's get in. I know one big thing that has happened just recently. I think they had the PFAS thing online just recently.
There's been a few things with PFAS going on right now, and it's one of those issues that it affects a lot of communities across the state. It definitely affects Fairfield.
Fairfield's been hit pretty hard.
It has, but here's the thing, and believe me, I've learned more about PFAS than I ever wanted to learn.
Yeah, I've been diving into this last couple weeks myself.
There's a lot. Do you know there's actually PFAS in everything we eat?
Yes.
And everything.
Especially anything that's like packaged in plastic.
Right. So there's a lot of it. Fairfield's issues is because of the wells. We have some severely contaminated wells in Fairfield. There was recently a town meeting in Fairfield to deal with, to talk about it. My issue right now, and I put out I was trying to get a bill to stop this from happening, because I think that people should have a choice, and Fairfield is it's actually going to be on a non-binding referendum coming up in June.
Okay.
That they want to have a referendum to see if you want to basically force people to go on city water.
Yeah, I was talking with Kevin Kitchen about this earlier, and I don't feel that's the right thing to do.
No, because we have about 150 wells that are contaminated. But, friends of mine...
The question that I had for Kevin is I'd like to know how many wells there is in Fairfield.
There's a lot more.
To how many are contaminated.
Right, like what's the percentage?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I would like to find out.
Well, what they're talking about is spending $47 million to put water in the majority of the town, okay? But what they want to do, by doing that, they're saying that everybody that it goes by has to hook into it.
Oh, wow.
And the reason they're saying that...
It's to make it profitable.
Well, here's the problem, and here's where I see as
That'd probably
an issue.
be the argument, if I had to guess.
Here's the issue that I see. First of all, the money would either be coming from taxpayers, grants, or something along that line.
I would imagine there'd probably be a lot that would be FEMA money, because wouldn't that be an emergency thing at that point?
And I don't know. I'm not part of that part of it. It's really not in my purview. But what I look at it is that if that's paid for through tax or whatever, FEMA, or however it's paid for, okay, that's done. Well, then what happens is the Kennebec Water District, after it's built, will then take it over.
Yep.
Well, the Kennebec Water District has said, we're not going to take it over unless every person connects.
Wow.
See,
So it's the Kennebec Water District that is forcing this for everybody to connect.
now I'm curious on, like, how does that work with Waterville? Because I know, like, there's some places in Waterville that are on the outskirts that have well.
I don't think they have a
It
requirement.
doesn't. It's not a
See,
requirement right now. See,
so
and I'll give you an
that's-
example of
that's-
my own property.
yeah.
Okay, my property. When we bought our house, we have a well,
Yep.
and we also have city water. I'm at the
Okay.
end of the line on city water.
All right.
So I was told. So what we would do when we put our pool in, we would fill the pool. We'd have them turn on the city water to do the pool, because no matter what you do, even if you're
Yeah.
only filling it a little bit or whatever. So, and then about 10 plus years
Never
ago,
want to
maybe
make your well go
15 years-
dry.
well, about 15 years ago or so, we had a pipe break in our well.
Okay.
So my husband and I just chose to hook into city water and keep city water. So we never fixed the pipe. We just had,
cheaper
but
at that
we had
point.
the choice
Right.
to do that. Now I'm all for people having the choice.
See, that's the thing.
It has
is,
to be their
the
choice.
choice.
Now, if they want to bring it up and hook it to these houses, and doing that, if they hook it to these houses, let them decide if they want to put the meter on and have it, or if they want to keep their well. But I mean, there was talk at that meeting about closing the wells, filling the wells in. There was talk about you don't have a choice; you're going to have to get onto it. I have a problem with that.
Yeah, I do
And
too.
that's where my problem
It's bullying
comes
at
with.
that point, in my
Well,
opinion.
And it's got to be a lot of these wells that have had contamination have remediation systems now in place.
Now,
I have at least. I mean, I know
how
several
well do
people.
these systems work?
Really well.
Really well?
Yeah, some of these remediation systems have now, have less parts per trillion than the city water has.
Oh, wow.
City water right now has about 6 to 7 parts per trillion,
Okay.
and some of these remediation systems now have less than that.
Okay.
So why would you want to go from less than what the city water is to having to have city water?
Right.
So I believe it's
agree.
a choice issue.
Yeah,
And I'm not
definitely.
into mandates. I'm not a big
No,
fan of
I'm
mandates.
Is
not
there any
either.
plan in place to go over, the damage that's been done to like the deer population and things like that?
I haven't heard much about it. I mean, I had a problem. I tried to put a bill in because they told folks in the Fairfield area not to eat the deer
Yeah,
after hunting season had already started.
That's why Kevin
wow.
Kitchen bought the house
Right.
that he
Yeah.
bought as an investment for deer hunting.
Right.
We had
And
him on
the
our first
problem
podcast.
the problem with that is they waited till after hunting season started, and I had gotten wind of it prior to that, but I
I
was
wonder how many deer were. I wonder if any deer were bagged.
yeah, they
during
did.
that
time.
Yes,
Oh,
there
yeah.
was quite a few.
Oh, yeah.
And see, what I was trying to put in for a bill, and it didn't make it out of
Right.
Ledge Council, was that if
At least
somebody
you
took
tried.
a deer, if somebody had taken a deer in Fairfield, a lot of people in our area, that, they don't hunt just for sport. They hunt to feed their families.
Yeah.
And I was like, if they can't eat the deer that they already tagged, and you waited to the middle of deer season to tell them,
They should be issued another tag.
they should have either been issued another tag, or because this was
Or
after the fact,
reimbursed.
they should be reimbursed, whether it's,
Yep.
and, to me, that is on DEP for not saying early on, don't take a deer in this area. And if they took a deer in this area, then, then it's on them.
Right.
But waiting until after season had already started and was actually almost over. So I tried to do it so that it would be a reimbursement. It didn't even make it out of
That's a shame.
Ledge
That is.
Council.
I know multiple
I
people
know-
that got deer.
I know,
Yeah.
speaking with a few people, one thing that I've been talking about with this issue is a lot of these people that have bought in their homes that have this contamination on their property. When you buy a home, you look at it as an investment. How do we help these homeowners recoup their investment? So I guess what I'm trying to say is how can we make it so that they can do something with their property? Say, I don't know, build cabins on it to have like a little
Or-
campsite or something.
To make these families whole, basically.
Yeah.
Is what you're and unfortunately, I don't know what the answer is to that one.
And-
that is a tough answer because they still are paying property taxes.
Right.
Look at
That's-
what happened to the farms. The farms that, it happened. And to me, I go back to saying that this is on DEP.
Right,
Yep.
because they're the ones
Because-
that approved it.
DEP approved it initially.
When
and-
did they know about it? Did they know about it before hunting season? Do you know?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
been going
Yeah.
on for years.
So back
That really bothers me now that I know that.
So originally, I got a phone call from the DEP as the state legislator in the area.
Okay.
I got a phone call years ago? I've lost track of.
Right.
Okay, so let's say 2 years ago.
Sure.
I think it might have been 3 years ago. But I got a phone call from somebody from DEP that said, we have found contamination on a farm in Fairfield. We wanted to let you know so that you at least are kept up to date.
Right.
Well, then, and they were saying that they were going to do further testing to figure out where it came from and all this stuff. And then I was actually on vacation with my husband. I got a phone call while I was on vacation, and this was in the middle of the summer, and I never heard anything.
Okay.
Never heard anything after that. And then a letter comes out.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, and then a letter came out that was addressed to the town manager and myself, Scott COA, as we're the representatives in the, just to say, this is what's happened, this is what, and I waited, thinking the town manager at that point would let folks know what was going on. And I didn't hear anything. Finally, I released the letter
Okay.
To the public. And then people started, so it was before that, though, people started having their, the DEP started doing testing in the area. So people knew something was happening. Testing was going on, and they started testing. I released the letter because I felt at that point, I gave it like 2 weeks for somebody else to do it because I was just CC'd on the letter. So
right.
I was... but I ended up releasing it on my Facebook page to let people know what was going on.
Well, I would have done the same thing. I mean, that's something that people need to know.
I felt people needed to know and to talk about that type of thing.
If you know that you need to protect yourself,
right? And everybody,
I would tell my neighbor.
A lot of people they started spreading out as to where they were going to test, and they've tested a lot of wells in Fairfield.
From what I've heard, they've done a really good job on the testing.
I think they have done a good job. I know several people that have the remediation systems, and they have done well.
Good deal.
Part of the issue is people are saying, well, what about, the soil?
Right.
I've heard many things about plants where the PFAS only goes up so high in the stalks on things, so it's not necessary. The problem is
the research needs to be done on it.
The research hasn't been done. So we can keep throwing money on it, and it is a priority for the House Republicans, or for the House, not just the House, but for the Republicans in the legislature. PFAS is a priority to put money towards that. That was on our priority list for money to go towards that.
I'm glad that they did that.
But my problem is we can keep throwing good money after bad, but if we don't have research to know what's going on, we don't. The research that's out there, there's,
will indicate where the money should be spent.
Right. So there still needs to be more research. Let's make these people have clean drinking water, so that their water is fine, whether it's the remediation systems or something, that's okay.
Now, with these remediation systems, how would it work with, if, say, your well was contaminated and you wanted to get one of these systems, would you have to pay out of your own pocket?
No, actually right now the DEP is covering the cost of this.
Awesome.
So the remediation systems are being paid for. The testing, if you get DEP to test, DEP is paying for the testing. And then if it needs a remediation system, then the DEP is covering the cost of the remediation system.
Awesome.
One of the reasons they're pushing for the city water part of that is there has been some breakthroughs on the remediation systems, and they have to change the filters more often. It's costing more money, that type of thing. So they're thinking in the long run this might be better, but
maybe
when
cheaper.
You're looking at, it's actually not going to be, because if you take the $47 million and divide that by 150 wells that are contaminated.
Probably.
It's a big cost.
It's about $300,000.
Replace one huge filter,
it's about $300,000. Whereas the remediation system costs about $5,000.
Wow.
So why would you spend because 150 are contaminated, $300,000?
Yeah.
Doesn't really pass the smell test to me. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. And I'm not a big fan of mandates. So
I'm not.
I don't.
Especially when the DEP is the one that approved all these businesses that had the sludge to begin with.
And there was actually a bill that had to deal with the sludge this week that went through the legislature this week. And it had to do specifically with sludge, and it had to do with testing of it and this type of thing. So it's a little complicated. And like I said, I learned more about PFAS than I ever want to know. And I certainly don't try to explain it to people because...
It is a difficult thing to, even reading it and trying to explain it back to myself. I have to read it a few times.
Yeah.
It's hard, though, because it's been tested for quite a while, but it's just been pretty recent that we've known how bad it was.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
There still needs to be testing, and you've got a lot of... I guess, anecdotal information as far as
We need
what might
the
be-
long term.
Well, what might be the damages that it's causing? Is it causing cancer? You know,
Right.
in some cases, and I have seen research where yes, they believe some.
I was
of
going to
this.
say, I
There
saw,
are
looked
some
and
things.
read a few
I
things
mean,
about that.
And I will tell you, we were on well water for a lot of years. I actually have a medical condition called uveitis.
Okay.
It affects my eyes. And at one point, you know, they said there's 5 things that can cause it. Poison is one of them. And there's, you know, other things that could cause it. And they have not been able to find a cause.
So now you're wondering.
So now I'm wondering, you know, is it? And actually, since we've been on city water, I haven't had any flare-ups or have any issues for quite a while. So is it a cause and effect? Is it anecdotal?
Right.
You know, at this point,
It's too short
definitely-
time to know, really.
Yeah, it's
Right.
definitely something that
you know, it's certainly something that needs to be tested.
Absolutely.
And it needs, to me, I almost think that more money needs to be put into the testing aspect and the research aspect than just throwing money at, you know, some of the, you know, the
Right.
issues
Some of the
to do it.
R&D stuff.
Or,
needs-
Right.
you know, one bill, there was a PFAS bill this week that I voted against because the bill would only affect one particular product on the market. Well, if it's only one product on the market that they were specifically targeting, that didn't make sense to me.
Right.
I have a problem with targeting, you know,
Right.
individuals
things and stuff
and
like
not
that.
the problem.
Right. So I have a problem with some of that stuff. So, you know, and that's why if I ever vote on a bill that somebody doesn't understand how I voted, I am happy to explain it.
Right.
I will tell you right now, there are very few. I might have to look it up, you know, to remember what it is, how I voted, you know,
Right.
because believe me, we voted on so many bills that I wouldn't
Lose
necessarily-
count.
Right. But I would say that I could justify all of my votes. You know, there was over one vote I ever took in a committee vote that I regret taking. Other than that, I don't regret any vote that
That's
I've
awesome.
taken since I've been in the House.
Have you ever thought of releasing like just like a quick paragraph of like the LD number and why you voted the way you did?
I do that. I do that sometimes. I just on my Facebook page, I'll post. You know, I'll make posts like today I did about the abortion one.
I was going to say, there's a little excerpt.
Yeah, and a lot of times I'll even post the roll call
Yeah, I've
votes
seen
and
some
things
of
like
those.
that. I mean, if somebody asks, you know, I try to explain or you know why
Well,
I did some of
some
that.
politicians won't. I mean, they avoid talking about why they voted
Yeah.
the way they did.
You know, and I'm not going to say I'm going to remember every vote because believe me, by the end of the day, I can't remember half the things we voted on today. By the end
Hey,
of the
sometimes
day.
I wake up in the morning. Well, I wake up
just
in the
getting
morning, I
old,
forget my
so,
name, but
you know, I just figure I'm getting old, so I forget.
well, it's not just that. I mean, I get asked how old I am all the time. I always forget, so don't feel bad.
Yeah,
But,
you know, there's a lot of that stuff that's going on, and we just have to, you know, I'll look them up if somebody has something specific. Because I get asked about bills all the time, and they'll go, LD, whatever. I don't remember LD numbers.
Right.
Forget
Yeah,
it.
of course not.
What was that bill about? Tell me a little bit about what it was about. Okay.
Or
Then
at
I
least
can
the
tell you,
working,
right.
At least the working title
Right.
or something.
Yeah. And if not, then I will go look it up. If they, you know, if they have a question they really want me to answer, I'll look it up that way too.
Sometimes I'll remember things if I'm doing research about it. Like LD 2003
Well,
was like that big housing bill or something.
Right,
where-
and the one that always sticks in my head is 798
Oh,
because
yeah,
that
yeah.
was I was part of that.
Vaccinations.
Yeah, and I was in committee till 2:30 in the morning.
I was gonna
listening
say,
to
yeah.
committees. That was a late night.
Yeah.
So you know there are certain things that you do remember.
That
Become
bitters in the ass, huh?
impressionable.
Well,
for
and
sure.
in that particular case, what became impressionable, people that don't know what that is, was the vaccination bill and taking away
The exemptions.
the exemptions, the medical exemption, the philosophical exemptions. And the impression that one made on me was the testimony in front of us. That's what we missed this session.
Yeah.
Because that testimony, when you've got a 14-year-old that is sitting in the front row, falling asleep at 2:00 in the morning, waiting to testify, that makes an impression.
Yeah,
That makes an impression. And then when you have a 14, I don't know, he must have been 13, 14 years old, that got up and stood there and said, I'm going to have to leave school.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a violinist that played at the White House. He was and he's talking about these things you're going.
all these accomplishments
yeah,
that he's done.
and he's like, because of this,
And
those
yeah.
make impressions on I know they make impressions on me. I can't
Yeah,
speak for
me too.
everybody, but that makes an impression on me. and having them come in front of us. And that's what we missed this session.
Yep.
We missed having those things. And because the Democrats controlled even the Zoom meetings to the point where lobbyists, special interest groups, and especially in front of my committee, believe me, special interest groups and social projects or whatever, when they come in front of me or they're on the Zoom in front of us, and somebody that is a regular citizen is sitting on that Zoom meeting for 2 hours waiting to testify, but the lobbyists went first, the social service groups went first, and all this.
The ones that are there every day.
Right. The ones that have,
the time to be there.
They get paid to be there. And then you've got a citizen that is waiting to testify.
You think they would give them the preferential treatment?
Usually in a committee meeting.
Especially with the kids that you were mentioning.
And this kid is falling.
Bonkers.
One of this kids is falling asleep. They finally realize, he signed up. Because in that one we signed up ahead of time.
Right.
We did all these things so people signed up, and the kid is. I felt so bad, but I will tell you, a lot of those made impressions on me, and we fought hard for that.
Yeah, that was a fight. That was a really big fight.
That was a tough one, but that's the type of thing that we missed this session, which is why all of these bad bills are getting passed, because I think we're going to see the people.
I think we're going to feel these effects until I think more legislators like yourself speak up about this disconnect. I think it's great that you're doing.
Well, and that's the thing we all
it.
have to do is we have to realize just how much of it. And again, a lot of the new folks didn't have this experience. We had 11 new people.
Yeah.
So we had 11 people that didn't get the true experience of what being a legislator
is all about. Yeah.
From walking the gauntlet when you've got all these people holding signs. We had a little bit of it, but nothing like some of that. I can remember walking into the committee room for the 798 even before.
Yeah,
even before
was
we had
outside.
People out. Well,
all the way
I'm
up
talking
the
a
stairs.
month before we even had a hearing. I got stopped in the hall. What are your thoughts on 798? I'm like, okay, tell me what the bill is. And they're like, I'm like, I haven't had a chance to read it yet. And they're like, well, I'm like, give me a chance to read the bill, and then we'll talk about it. And that was, but you're getting caught all the time.
Right.
People are, they're running into you in the lunchroom. And
that's another
questions.
thing that I've been talking about with new candidates this time around is being careful not to lock yourself into a position before you know everything about it.
Right. And I've been, for the most part, I try.
Because I've done that to myself.
Well, I think we all do it. But if I do, if I've locked myself into a position, I have no problem saying I was wrong.
Well, see, that's the thing. A lot of people won't admit that. They double, triple, quadruple down. And
we're human. We all screw up.
Yeah.
Or we, I didn't know everything about it at the time, and now I've learned more about it. So I'm changing my vote.
And I really do think constituents respect that more in a candidate or a politician when they're honest about when they mess up. Or at least being human about it.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I just have to be me, and that's the way.
Well, whatever you're doing, it's working because, like I said, before you were coming onto the show, I reached out and spoke with a few people and tried to get what everybody was thinking and what topics we should cover and whatnot. And they all have said and talked about how it doesn't matter who they are, you will reach back out to them. And that's huge in my book.
I had a woman reach out to me from up in the county. I can't even remember the name of the town. It's almost on the border. Reach out to me this week. I had people reach out to me from southern Maine, over the course of a lot of this stuff.
Yep.
And they're like, well, my legislator won't get back to me, and I was told that you could help me.
Yep.
And,
that's awesome.
I had one constituent that he would come over to my house, and I would help him fill out his unemployment stuff during COVID.
Wow.
Because he didn't have a computer to do that. And so I'm like, okay.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I feel that we are supposed to be here. Now, a lot of people don't realize we don't make a lot of money. Our session, our first year goes till usually the end of June. Our second year, we're supposed to be a part-time legislature.
Yeah.
we're really not a part-time legislature when you start and think about the amount of time that we spend.
Right. You guys slam the hours.
Sometimes it's
And, yeah.
right, and then you've got all of the time, like if you do any kind of constituent services,
The
throughout
out
the
and
year.
about,
Yeah,
being in the
I mean, I
community.
try to do what I can and talk to people when I can. I had a constituent get really mad at me because I missed his email before the last election, and
Oof.
he got mad at me. He says, I was going to vote for you, but I'm not because you didn't get back to me. I'm sorry. First of all, I get so many emails. I
Right.
try to tell people, if you're a constituent, put your town in the subject line.
Yep.
So that'll just highlight it for me sometimes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we just get
Well, we were talking about
inundated.
that earlier
I get
too.
email from people all over the
Bots.
state.
Yep.
Yeah, the bots that we get and emails that we get. Like, I try to look.
The chain mail
I definitely
bot,
try to
yep.
respond from somebody, like if they say they're from one of my towns. I try to respond
Well,
to others, but
that's the
it's
thing.
harder to do.
It's a good idea on that CC mark there to
Yeah,
put a little
just
something
in the subject
to make it a
line,
little more.
even,
Yeah,
just
or
to
that's
put
yeah.
your
Sorry,
town.
the subject line.
It
What I
That
does
makes
meant.
more
make
sense.
it,
Sorry,
yeah.
it's getting
Yeah.
late. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should probably wrapping up.
yeah,
We've been on for an hour
well,
and a
I
half.
really we gotta at least hit this topic.
Okay.
And, Long Creek is a really big topic
Oh.
right now. We'll just try to keep it brief.
I'll try to
but
keep it brief. Long Creek is a tough situation.
Yes.
Long Creek is the juvenile correction center in the state of Maine. It is in South Portland
Yep.
right now. It is something that we as a state, we own the building and the facility outright. Right now, there are about 30 juveniles in there. And I don't care what people say, these are the worst of the worst. These are murderers. These are sex offenders.
Yep.
These are, they're the worst
There's
of the
no
worst.
coming back
Right.
into the
Is
community.
it the only one in the state?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And we have reduced the numbers in there substantially, especially during this COVID time period. To me, and I toured Long Creek last fall,
Yep.
it is a lockdown high school. So they're getting their education while they're there. They get what they need. Now, there was some damage this past fall. There was a lot going on this fall because a lot of it they're saying is boredom, and there was a lot of things going on because they lacked a lot of the volunteers and the programs during the COVID situation.
Right.
But what the Democrats are trying to do is, and there is a group of them trying to close Long Creek. What they want to do with these juveniles and put them in smaller facilities throughout the state.
Yep.
Now, first of all, why would we spend as taxpayers more money to put them in smaller
That's
facilities?
the big thing that I've noticed with this is just the amount of money that they're willing to throw at moving them. Why wouldn't we use this to fix what we already have?
And to be honest with you, that building it's not in bad shape.
No,
and they
I
could
was-
take that building and use it as a dual purpose and use some other things with it.
Yep.
There's a lot of other things that can be done. They just don't. So that has been the thing that I've been fighting now for almost a year, I guess, is well, it's been longer than that because they started wanting to close it earlier last year when I started on that
Yep.
committee. Or they've been trying to close it for quite a while.
Right.
So one of the places that is on their list to move these juveniles, and now you can call them what they want. They try to call them kids to make you think that they're young
human
kids.
They're
Right.
juvenile delinquents at this
These-
point.
They're worse than delinquents, to be honest with you. You know, I would say that they're a lot worse. These ones are worse, but they're trying to make it sound like they're just kids.
Right.
You know, they're just
The
kids.
ones that were out breaking curfew. And
Yeah, that's not what these are.
No.
These are the worst of the worst. They have been arrested and now sometimes they're
heinous crimes.
Now sometimes there is a kind of like a holding for them down there because there is nowhere else right now.
Right.
So, but what they're trying to do, Goodwill Hinckley is a location where they want to use as one of these facilities.
Now, what is at Goodwill Hinckley right now?
Well, here's the problem that I see it. Goodwill Hinckley, that facility has a charter school
and that's
and
the
they have KVCC.
Yeah. Okay.
So they also have some of the college stuff there now. So why would you take and put juveniles and a lockdown because you have to totally retrofit some of
Yeah, I
those
would
buildings.
imagine a they would probably have to do some type of fencing around
Oh,
the
there's
whole
going to have,
property.
there would have to be a lot of things to do. So that is one of the issues. So I've been fighting back against that. I've
Well-
spoken to the commissioner, and and him and I are going to butt heads on that one.
I know you brought up a really good point too, with just the amount of staffing that will have to be hired to accomplish all of this.
Well, or are they going to put those kids in our local high school?
Right.
Or are they hiring staff? There's a lot to it. And when you look at if it's $5 million to retrofit or whatever it's going to cost,
You're
to
not
these different-
looking at the
you're not
overhead.
saving any money.
Yeah.
Now, yes, is it expensive to run Long Creek? Yes, it is. Okay, but stop and think about that. Just because you say, well, they have 100 employees. Well, first of all, you have to. If there's 30 of them, those employees don't work around the clock.
Right.
They have vacation times. They have social workers. They have teachers. There's so many
Administration staff,
all
support
of that
staff,
stuff. So yes,
maintenance.
it's expensive. Yes, I don't necessarily agree that I think we can do other things with that building,
I think you're correct.
but I don't think that we need to close it. I think it needs to stay open and do what that is. So
I think-
that's an issue for me.
I do think that would probably be the better route to take because of the money situation. I think it'd be more physically responsible to do it that
right.
way.
And when I toured it, I actually had them say to me, because prior to my touring it, a lot of the Democrats went down and did they stood in front of the building and
took
said,
Took
took
pictures.
a picture and said, we need to,
cried at the gate.
because there was all these problems. And I went in and toured, and they said, yeah, they didn't even come in. We invited them to come
Really?
in and tour, and they didn't. So after that fact, when I called them out about it on the radio, after that fact, they scheduled some tours, and
Of course they
some
did.
of
Oh, that's
them
funny.
did go
Of course
tour.
they did.
Yeah, some of my own colleagues hadn't, on the Republican side, had toured it in the years past or whatever, but they all,
Not
they
recently.
made an effort
Well-
to go in again and tour.
That's probably a good thing you did that then.
Yeah, I don't have a problem calling people out if I think they're,
Well,
they're wrong.
someone's got to do it.
So,
So
I'm sure I've been called out or talk to me. If you got a problem, talk to me.
But let's. I know the Victor Grange over in Fairfield is a big thing with you,
It
and we'll
is.
finish
Okay.
up on this, I guess.
So Victor Grange, over the years and for years, Grange has been a big part of the community in any Maine town, and a lot of these Granges are going by the wayside. And Victor Grange in
I know
Fairfield Center
the
is,
one in Fairfield, they've done quite a bit of work too.
We have. Over the last several years, I've been very involved. I actually joined and officially became an official member just recently. But I'd been a member, but, they actually did the whole thing to become the... And we have had to do a lot of things over there. That building is a historic building.
Yep.
And if you've never been in that building, go upstairs.
I've never been in, but I've been around it.
Okay, well, great things about that building that I think is so fascinating. Upstairs on the stage, there's a big stage upstairs, and it's got the tin ceilings, the old tin ceilings.
wow.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
I
It
think
needs
Nick
to be
Isgro just posted a house
Yeah.
with 10 ceilings
It
in it.
needs to be, there's a lot of refurbishing that still needs to be done. But the stage has this amazing curtain on it that actually has businesses that advertise and that are
Oh,
there's
wow.
still some businesses that are around from when that curtain was put up.
Oh,
and it's
that's
an
awesome.
old painted curtain. It's absolutely gorgeous. Central
Wow.
Maine Motors, one of their ads is up on there.
Really?
There's an ad for Kai's Fiber up
Oh,
on
wow.
there. For one of the funeral homes.
I'd love to get a
It's
picture of
the
this
coolest thing. And it's just an amazing, and it needs to be restored, and
Yep.
there is a way to do that, but that's going to cost about $5,000 to get that restored. But it's amazing. I mean,
It
the
sounds
curtain
it.
itself. But other interesting parts about that building that I think is just really cool. Do you know they used to have a shooting club in that building?
I did
Really?
not.
There are
Wow.
pictures upstairs on the wall of the shooting club. Well, you can still make out the lines on the floor in the bottom stairs where they had lines where they would shoot.
Oh, that's
Oh,
fun.
wow.
They had this shooting team that would shoot the rifles and whatever. It's just the history in that building is amazing.
Just
if
how
you haven't been
far back
part
it
of
goes, too.
they have regular public suppers, and that's how they raise money for different things that they're doing for the restoration of the building.
Yep.
So I'm very active. It's just down the street from my house, but if you haven't had the chance, you should check out the Victor Grange. And we'll be posting. There's some pictures that are going to go up in the 2 Cent Times, not this next one, but in the May. of things. We just we thank Rudnicki very, very much for they donated an AED. I think it's an AED.
Yeah,
machine.
AED.
It's the they just
Heart
donated,
defibrillator.
Yes, they just donated one to the Grange, which
That's
is amazing.
awesome. Yes.
We have a lot of seniors that come in.
Those
There are
things
a lot
save
of
a lot of
different
lives.
things that are going on. So we've done, they really have done a lot to try to raise money to
That is
refurbish
awesome.
the building.
I know they just, what was it, last year they did a lot of refurbishing around the doors to the entrance.
Yeah, we had to redo the doors and the entrance. The house that was next door was demolished. It was given from the town, gave it to them, so we've made a parking
That's
lot
awesome,
now.
yeah. Now they got significant parking.
Right.
So they
we
can
actually had to
be able to do a lot of things there
we
now.
had to insulate. The insulation was really bad. So there's a lot a lot of people don't realize how many things the Grange did. For several years in a row, they worked with window dressers, and they haven't since COVID, but what window dressers is they do inserts on windows.
Okay.
So if you have an old house, and a lot of seniors in the area with the old houses couldn't their house wasn't heated well.
Right.
These window inserts and I actually bought some for my own house until I just replaced some windows, but they would insert inside and it would cut and it would help your heating in the winter.
Wow.
So we did a lot of those.
I would imagine they're probably made out of vinyl.
No? The inserts are actually made out of wood and this heavy duty plastic, and it's fantastic. It was a great
Definitely something to look
opportunity.
into.
So there was, and that was the way we did it is there was so many that were given away and so many sold. So given away to seniors and things in the area
awesome.
that did. So we did a
Good
lot.
idea.
I want to say we did something like 900 windows.
Oh,
over
wow.
a few, might be more, give or take. I'm not sure the exact numbers. So the Grange has done a lot, and I love to plug them when I can.
That's
because
awesome.
They're really great for helping the seniors.
That's how we met. So
Yeah.
I mean, the Grange is.
I'll be checking it out
it's got all-
Saturday, so I can't wait.
Yeah.
I mean, the dinner pack.
The dinner
The
table pack.
dinner table pack does a lot over there too.
I've done
So.
some things over there. We meet in different places, and so we're going to this week. That's our thing. And
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
it's a great facility for renting. They're actually starting to get more rental stuff.
So like if you had like a birthday or something, you could rent
could rent it.
rent the hall out.
Yeah,
Or a
yeah,
hall,
they rent
even
the
a
hall.
wedding or something.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they do a lot of that stuff. So
I would imagine it's probably fairly reasonable too.
yeah,
I would
and a lot of
imagine.
people don't know about it or think about it.
Right, because they probably think of the community center when it comes to Fairfield.
Right.
Yeah, I know. We rent out the VFW over in Oakland quite a bit.
Yeah.
My family does, anyways.
Yeah, so I mean, the Grange has that ability. I know there's like a baby shower or something.
Now that I
coming
know that,
up,
I
and
might actually
so there's
look into
other
it.
things that are going on. So I highly recommend it to
Definitely.
anybody. And there's some great pictures and stuff for that history. of
Yeah,
that
I really
building.
like this aspect of the history though, because
Yeah.
I'm real big on the history of
Yeah, so
for
there's
Maine.
a
So
lot of great pictures from back in, because that building I believe was built, I want to say 1820. Oh, and to give a plug, if you want some old chairs,
okay.
the Grange is going to be selling off some of the chairs that
Oh, that's cool.
that were back
Okay.
from the
So
late 1800s.
Are they do so like an auction, silent
Oh
auction
well, they're
or
still
something?
trying to work on
Figure
how
out
they're
how
going to.
they're
We're
gonna
going
do
to we're going to take some pictures and
Okay.
and.
I
see
think
what
a silent
people would-
auction would probably be the best way to
So
go.
it'd be kind of fun. So
Yeah,
I
like
like
that.
to plug that when I can. Because,
That's awesome.
And not just Victor Grange. There are Granges across the state that do a lot of wonderful
I
things.
just recently learned that. I thought that was the only one until
Benton
a couple
has
of weeks
one
ago.
as
Yes.
well.
Yep.
So
Yep. It's over.
Smithfield
yeah. It's,
has one. I know that is pretty active.
No
so
doubt.
they're across the state. So
It
it's
is.
a great idea.
It is an interesting.
Does Clinton
thing.
still have one? Didn't they have one before?
I want to say they had one by the fairgrounds, if I remember
I
right.
thought it was over by the interstate.
Is it?
Maybe not. Maybe it used to
I
be.
think that
over
may be a
remember.
VFW. I think.
Yeah, I know there's a
Not
Masonic
sure.
Hall in the
Yeah.
in Clinton and stuff too. So it's kind of.
Yeah.
But it's it's definitely something that to let people know. What's
Yeah, I
happening.
definitely never thought of that, but now that you mention it, I think I'll look into that for probably Kai's next birthday.
Well, there you
Because
go.
we like to rent out the halls because we have too many kids to run around at the house. I'd rather clean a big room up that's open than
Been there, done
small
that.
Yeah.
in between the
A
couch
long
and
time
everything.
ago, I did that
so,
too.
but so let's. Where's the best place that people can find you?
Find me on Facebook. I have my representative page is Shelley Rudnicki on Facebook. You can check me out there. I usually put a lot of information or some information up. I haven't been as vocal. I do Facebook Lives a lot to try to let people know what's going on, what I'm doing in the community, and that type of thing. And my phone number's out there. People call me all the time. You can reach out to me anytime. I
Definitely.
run my own business in Fairfield, so I'm usually around
Awesome.
doing that too. So
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely. And yeah, well, hopefully we'll be able to get you back on soon.
yeah, well, we end up talking. See, I told
I know.
you we wouldn't lack for things.
Yeah, I knew this would be a good. Oh wow,
It's almost 2 hours.
Yeah,
Oh,
almost 2
man.
hours. Wow, that's a lot longer than I thought we were.
Sorry, guys.
Hey, no worries. It's worth it. So.
It was a good chat.
Definitely
And
a
we
good
could
chat.
literally just keep talking.
Oh, I
and
know it.
Still not even accomplish everything that.
My kids used to always say, and they used to tease me. My husband still does. She found somebody she knows. She's going to be a while.
I'm the same way
I end
whenever
up
I'm at like Walmart
man.
or
Yeah.
something. I can just talk and my kids are like all in the
Yeah.
corners walking around. I'm
Yeah.
like, just go over there. I'm almost done.
Yeah,
An hour later.
Candace does that. She'll text message me. Let's go.
I'm like, I'm just hanging out. We're just chatting. It's
Right.
fine.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
We all do
man.
it. So
But,
it's fun. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
having me on. I enjoyed it.
Definitely. I'm Sean Karen,
And I'm Jeremy Leza.
and thank you again, Shelley. This Shelley Rudnicki, House Representative. What number is it?
Right now it's 108, but
108.
I'm running for District 67.
67. All righty. Until next time, remember, a true patriot question.